The sheriff's cruiser came barreling down the gravel drive, kicked up a cloud of red Texas dust, so thick I couldn't see my boots for a second, and when it finally stopped at the edge of my property, out stepped Deputy Martinez, hand on his holster, scanning my place like he was about to serve a warrant on a wanted man. I just stood there dumbfounded while my two bloodhounds, Duke and Daisy, flanked me on either side, tails thumping the dirt, acting like this was just another set of visitors coming to toss him a treat. Let me tell you, nothing could have prepared me for how sideways things would get after that. You ever feel the universe wind up and pitch a curveball just to see if you'll swing? Yeah, that was my morning right then. "We've received a complaint about your dogs being a public disturbance, sir. I need to see some ID," Martinez said, voice all business, which felt about 3 steps too serious for what was basically my own front yard. As I reached for my wallet, trying to process how my dogs were tired. Search and rescue, for crying out loud, could possibly be a threat. Duke's nose shot up, twitched at something only he could smell, and before I could so much as snap my fingers, he'd taken off toward the tree line, barking his deep rolling bark that echoed across the fields. Now rewind just 3 weeks. I'd inherited this stretch of land from my Uncle Frank, a 40-acre patch of rolling hills pond, and all right on the blurry edge between the Houston suburbs and what I like to call real country. I'd always figured out here I could sidestep all that suburban politics nonsense. Uncle Frank had left me more than property. He left me his dogs Duke and Daisy, both retired from sniffing out hikers and tracking suspects, rescued from a cut program, but still sharper than most folks' idea of a working dog. All I wanted was to give them a quiet, well-earned retirement space to run air to breathe and maybe a squirrel or two to chase. It took about an hour before the first curtain twitched in the McMansion across the road. Not long after, a woman in her late 30s wandered up to my gate, introduced herself as Jennifer Collins. She gave me that neighborly smile, but her eyes darted over her shoulder as she warned, "Just so you know, the HOA president's already been asking about the new guy. You'll want to tread careful. Margaret runs this place like it's her own fiefdom. She's driven 3 families out just in the last year." I thanked her, figured she was just being neighborly with a dash of local drama. Looking back, I realized she was underselling the storm about to roll through. Second day on the ranch, as I'm sweating through the last of the moving boxes, a silver Lexus glides up to my gate. Out steps a woman in her 50s, Margaret Whitfield, I'd learn HOA president, dressed in a crisp pantsuit, and those sunglasses that look like they cost more than my truck. She's got that aggressive bob haircut, and a face like she's biting down on a lemon wedge. Barely says hello before raising her hand, literally stopping my words mid-sentence. "Let me be clear," she said, and honestly, her voice was so icy, I felt like I'd stepped into a walk-in freezer. "This neighborhood has standards. No dogs over 25 pounds, and yours are in violation." Out comes a leather-bound folder thick with printouts. She starts reading: "No big dogs, no visible dog houses, no barking after 7 p.m., no odors, no joy, apparently." I kid you not. It went on so long, even Daisy, who's seen some things, just lay down and started snoring. I tried to explain with every bit of Texas patience I could muster that my property wasn't part of the HOA. Showed her my deed, pointed out the survey markers, plain as day. I'm outside her kingdom. That's when her face went from lemon to tomato, and she stabbed a finger at my chest. Everyone in Willow Creek follows the rules, member or not. It's about property values. She took a few photos of Duke and Daisy, then stalked back to her car, heels crunching the gravel, the queen returning to her castle. And that's when the real show began. Every morning, new notes taped to my gate, barking at 3 a.m. violation. Dogs visible from the road violation. Existing violation. I started saving them just to see if her creativity would run out. Spoiler, it didn't. Margaret parked her Lexus across from my driveway every morning, phone pointed at me, at the dogs, documenting everything from my fence repairs to Duke's bathroom breaks. At this point, even my mailman started waving from a safe distance. Then one Thursday, as I'm out front running Duke through some new tricks, the sound of sirens cuts through the peace. 2 sheriff's cruisers pull up. That's when Martinez delivers his line about public disturbance. But the real kicker, Margaret herself, emerging from behind a tree like she's been crouched there waiting for a curtain call, strutting over in her power suit, wearing a grin that made my skin crawl. She starts ranting about aggressive dogs, how they're terrorizing the neighborhood. Martinez just looks at Duke and Daisy, who are sprawled in the sun, barely raising their heads, and asks, "Ma'am, they seem calm. What did they do?" And bless him, Officer Chen's got his notepad out writing it all down while Margaret's listing off offenses like she's reading from a menu at the world's most miserable restaurant. Just as I'm thinking, maybe things will fizzle, Duke's nose twitches again, and in a flash he's off charging for the tree line that bloodhound focus dialed to 11. The rest of us stumble after Margaret shrieking about dangerous animals on the loose. About 200 yards in, Duke starts pawing and howling at a padlocked shed tucked behind a mess of scrubby trees practically invisible if you didn't know where to look. Deputy Martinez checks his map. Turns out we're still technically on Margaret's property, but something's off about the shed. New construction, reinforced door, big locks, electrical cables snaking into the underbrush. Officer Chen radios for backup while Martinez, figuring there's probable cause, fetches some bolt cutters. When he snaps the lock and swings open the door, every single person freezes inside a wall of electronic surveillance monitors and stacks of sealed packages. Margaret comes crashing through the brush just as Martinez starts flipping through what's clearly a high-end surveillance setup, multiple screens, cameras covering every angle of the neighborhood. She tries to shriek about private property, but her voice cracks when Martinez starts snapping photos. "Ma'am," he says, "we've had several reports of illegal surveillance in this area." And now this. Margaret tries to play it off, saying it's for the neighborhood watch, but nobody's buying it, not when there are recordings of private conversations, package deliveries, even credit card skimmers. Suddenly, the place is crawling with backup detectives, tech guys, and windbreakers, all cataloging the mess. They start matching serial numbers on the packages, electronics, prescription meds stolen off porches around the neighborhood. The credit card skimmers connect to a bunch of identity theft cases. One detective, Rodriguez, reads off a list: 17 illegal surveillance reports, 23 missing package complaints, 9 identity thefts. And then comes the bomb federal mail theft charges, too. Margaret's lawyer shows up just in time to see them pull out stacks of stolen cards. He tries to shut her up, but she can't help herself, still shrieking about protecting the community, gesturing wildly at me and my mongrel mutts. It's chaos. She's in handcuffs, makeup running, screaming about how I ruined everything she built. But it's all coming apart. The cops found she'd been selling info to third parties, exploiting her access as HOA president for profit. Everything from social security numbers to bank details from dues payments. The prosecutor told me later they'd never seen a civilian pull off such a massive privacy violation. So there it was, Margaret Whitfield, queen of the Willow Creek HOA, on her way to facing 25 years in federal prison and millions in fines, all because she couldn't let go of her crusade to control everyone else. As the patrol car pulled away, her face pressed to the glass, she was still screaming about my dogs ruining her life. But you know what? Duke and Daisy just sat by my side, tails wagging like they knew they'd just cracked their biggest case yet. And I'll say this, maybe justice isn't always perfect, but some days karma's got a pretty good sense of humor. So, what do you think? Was I out of line, or is this just what happens when you push the wrong Texan too far? Drop your thoughts below, right or wrong justice, or just more small-town drama. I want to hear your take on it.